these days. It's a particular pleasure to be back in Limerick, where I started out, and I'd like to read some poems about Limerick. And for me, growing up in Thomondgate, Limerick was very much a city on the river, and the tides, of course. The river is tidal, as you know. Full tide, low tide, all the different aspects of the river as it's filled and as it drained. All of that really was a kind of mechanism in the background. I'll read just a couple of pieces from a sequence just called simply Limerick, from a collection, Eris, I published some years ago. This is River Town. The first town planner was a Dane wading the ford. He conceived of a river dividing people in that bare place, and gave to Lax Weir its meaning. Water was always going to be a concept here, as was stone lifting grey stone above the river. Anglo-Normans, Elizabethans, Cromwellians, all kept the town's portcullis, but they died elsewhere, and left memories to the local historians, for them to celebrate the sullen garrison and the gaudy jades in the streets of Irish town. They survive in an engraving under Turner skies, these characters hidden by their burdens as they unload the yawl at the wharf. The shawled women, the ragged urchins, the tight waistcoat of the boss who told the artist to make him look prosperous. And then later there's this scene at Barrington's Pier, with young lads jeering at a Finnish timber ship as it surges proudly on its way from Limerick before I was ready. So there I am, waving, being abandoned to my early books on rivers, the Volga by Gorky, the Vistula by Grass. When I was growing up as well, one of the things about the place was the fairly newly opened Shannon Airport and all the Americans coming through. And that was a sort of a window onto a bigger world, a world that we didn't have much of a say in or a part of at the time. But it certainly was part of the landscape. And I remember we would actually go to the airport on a Sunday afternoon just to sit in the lounge and watch a few planes taking off. And there weren't that many planes. There wasn't that much traffic at Shannon in those days. And this is another poem. This is a poem about that. A stone's throw. Released to the summer sea, we played skimming stones. Each small discus hit 8, 9 or maybe 10 times before it faltered. We threw in the direction that the planes were heading, taking off from Shannon with their privileged set returning to the States. We knew our station then and used fragments of slate or other well-shaped bits of stone for our scansion. If you angled well on a calm stretch of water, you could extend the count to the syllables in the British Overseas Airways Corporation, that Alexandrine along the length of the plane we waved to the day Paddy went back to Boston. He threaded the first path my stones were longing for to America, to see myself checking in with words to make the stone take off as metaphor.